I've spent a year with my Silhouette Cameo 5. We've laughed, we've cried, we've cut some things maybe we shouldn't have. And now let's talk about what's hot, what's not, and if I'd swipe right on a Silhouette Cameo 5 again. Before we get started, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Christy here at Crafty Christy's Creations, and I'm here to help you master your silhouette. And today, that means letting you know if a Cameo 5 is the right machine for you. So let's dive in and see if it's worth it. So first of all, I want to just talk about the actual Cameo 5 machine itself. They did come out with new technology for this machine with the Intel Path technology that makes it cut faster, quieter, and smarter. And I will be the first to admit that it is noticeably quieter. But I will say that over time, things have probably from me cutting materials and goofing things up and getting the blade stuck. The machine definitely is not near as quiet as it was in the beginning. And that's probably because I've goofed some things up. But it is still remarkably more quiet than my Cameo 4. So from that regard, still 100% worth it. And it has the same auto blade that you have in the Cameo 4. In fact, the carriages in Carriage 1 is the same as your Carriage 1 in your Cameo 4. So that means all the tools that you use in Carriage 1 of your Cameo 4 do also work in your Cameo 5 in Carriage 1. The thing that's new in your Cameo 5 is that Carriage 2 is a power port. So it comes with the ability to plug in your heat pens, which is an awesome feature. I will say that I do enjoy the Silhouette heat pens. I find it a lot more convenient to use than the foil quill, only because it automatically syncs with your cutting machine software. It is meant to be used with that machine, whereas the foil quill is a third-party supply that will also work with your Cameo 5 or any of your older machines, really. But using it does void your warranty on your cutting machine. So, that is a risk you have to think about. But, when looking at, if I was looking at the Cameo 5 just for the heat pen, then I would say, no, it's not worth it. Any quirks that I've run into? Well, I have to say, I'm on my second Cameo 5. So I had this weird snafu with my original Cameo 5 that I bought. I was having a lot of issues with the Bluetooth. And it got to the point that I was taking out the little dongle piece that goes in the back of the machine, swapped it with the one in my Cameo 4 because the Bluetooth was working great in there, and then I goofed it all the heck. And it would no longer register as a Cameo 5. So that essentially made it useless. So I did have to chat with Silhouette, and after a while of back and forth, they did replace my Cameo 5 for me free of charge, which was super nice. And I will say that my interactions with them, well, they took a couple of months, but they did ultimately just give me a new machine because they couldn't help me troubleshoot it through email with me sending them videos. So let's talk about the other things that I really love about my Cameo 5. And the number one reason that I purchased it was the electrostatic mat. So let's talk about it. For me, this was the thing that sold me on the Cameo 5. And with the electrostatic mat, if you're unfamiliar, it uses electricity, static electricity, instead of a sticky mat to maintain your material on the cutting mat while it's being cut. So the cool thing about it is that it's meant for cardstock and really thin material. And your electrostatic mat does a phenomenal job with those materials. The cling from the static electricity holds it in place while it's going through the cutting machine. But the other thing is, when you're using those thinner materials, you'll notice that you're also using a lot less downward force, which is also why that electricity is enough to hold that in place. Now, I have found that I am still using the original cover that came, protective sheet that came with my Cameo 5, and I have cut through it in spots, but in general, it is still holding up really, really well. So that's also another nice feature, is that my sticky mat I get 6 months out of, because I am using this machine on the daily. So I think the life expectancy of your electrostatic mat and the protective sheets for it is definitely longer than what I'm getting from my sticky mats. So that's another plus. The things that I wish were different on the electrostatic mat is I wish they had grid lines, because it's really difficult to see what you're doing on your mat. So let's take a look at it. Here's what the screen looks like with the electrostatic mat. And I've got mine set up for media size for letter, which is typically what I'm cutting. And you can see there's my cut border is that red line. But what you'll notice is it doesn't go all the way flush to the edge. Like with your sticky mat, you know exactly where your 0 by 0 intersection is on your sticky mat. With the electrostatic mat, there's a bit of guessing. You can see you've got this, let's call it 1/4 of an inch from the edge of your of your electrostatic mat to where it will actually start cutting. But because there's no grid lines on the actual mat, it's a guessing game as to if you're on the edge. And there has been times where I'm cutting and I know I'm close to the edge, and then it turns out that I was a lot closer than I thought, and I actually cut half of my design off of my cardstock. So then I'm wasting cardstock and having to start over. This video is brought to you by my Silhouette Cut Setting Tracker sheet. So this sheet is really awesome because it helps you keep track of all of those precious cut settings that you spent so much time with those test cuts trying to figure out the perfect settings for your blade, your machine, and your material. And once you got them sorted out, you just write them down on this handy dandy sheet of paper, and they're right here where you need them. No worries about updating your software and losing all of your user-specific material details. So you can grab your copy of the Cut Setting Tracker at craftychristiescreations.com/cut setting. And I will leave a link below so that you can grab that freebie. All right, let's get back to the video. The other thing with the electrostatic mat is I'm really not able to cut anything smaller than a 6 by 6 inch scrap. I just don't trust it to hold in place. There's not enough electric static to hold that there unless you're going to tape it down. But for me, while taping on the electrostatic mat is so much easier than on a sticky mat, it still kind of defeats the purpose of that electrostatic mat in my brain. So when I'm cutting scraps, I'm still looking for my sticky mat. But those are things that they could easily fix in the future by even just coming out with some different of those clear protector sheets that have accurate grid lines on them. That would at least help me know where to put my smaller scraps when I'm doing that. So the other thing to know about your electrostatic mat is everything that you're cutting has to be completely flat. If you've got corners that are curling up, it doesn't have enough surface area to hold that on there, and you risk that might slide around on there. And if you're using rolls of vinyl or heat transfer vinyl, don't even bother with the electrostatic mat. You just need to use that roll feeder and do it that way, because it is meant to only cling to extremely flat surfaces. So the big question, would I buy it again? Let's talk about who the Cameo 5 is good for. Now, if you are your typical, you cut everything under the sun kind of crafter, and you don't do a ton of paper crafting, while the Cameo 5 is quieter and faster at cutting, you might find that worth it. But for me, the big reason I bought it was that electrostatic mat. And if you're cutting a lot of thicker material like leather or wood, or you're doing a lot of heat transfer vinyl or regular vinyl, I just don't think that electrostatic mat is for you, in which case I would recommend that the machine you have is going to get the job done for you. Save that money to go buy some more crafting supplies. But if you're a paper crafter, or you're cutting a lot of vellum, or you're making crepe paper flowers, or you're doing a lot of very intricate thin materials, then yes, don't waste any more time. Pause this video and go buy yourself a Cameo 5 with that electrostatic mat. This will change your life. So a year later, is the Cameo 5 worth it for me? Oh yeah. It is front and center on the table in the craft room, and you'll notice that's the one I'm using in the majority of the videos that you're watching, because it is indeed my workhorse. So let me know in your comments, what do you think about the Cameo 5? Do you have more questions about it? Do you want it? Do you have it? Do you like it? I want to hear all about it. And before you jump off, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future Silhouette Studio videos. I drop a new video once a week. And up here in the corner, I will leave you some more videos that I think you're really going to find interesting, and some fun projects for you to create.